Hello, welcome back to my second part of my bookbinding project. If you haven't seen part 1, it's up on my channel right now. It's called Starting a Huge Project, and I'll pop it up on screen. And then also I have a bonus video related to this, where it's just me picking out paper for 20 minutes. Honestly, editing it was quite hilarious, so would recommend checking both videos out, especially if you haven't seen part 1, because you're kind of jumping in at a weird point. But in this part, I am attaching the end papers I cut in the last part to the actual books. And so what I'm doing is that I have a silicone brush, I believe that's what they call it, but it basically has no bristles. You can see it's just like rubber at the end. And this makes it super easy to remove glue after using it, because you just peel it off. And so what I'm doing is taking that brush and using PVA glue. When I went over the checklist of things I got in the last part, this was on it, and so I got this from Hollander's. And it's lasted me quite a while, so I barely put a dent in it throughout all 6 of these books. What I'm doing is I'm lining the folded edge with glue, like a very thin line in a small amount. And then I'm squishing it against the book to create an end page. And you can also probably see that I have the end papers labeled. And so I put F for front, B for back, and then an up arrow indicating which direction it needed to go. And the reason I did this is because the F or the B, respectively, will be attached directly to the cover, so that pencil will be hidden. And that's how I know where to glue it, and so that it doesn't end up upside down. In this case, it's not super necessary because it's a blank sheet of colored paper, but if you had a pattern, you would want to make sure that your pattern is going the direction you want it. And then I repeated this process front and back for all 6 books for a total of 12 end papers, and it was all the same process, so I'll go ahead and move on to the next section. So the next part of this process involves the mull cloth, which, if you didn't know, is a type of fiber that kind of just adds reinforcement to both your spine and helps kind of attach it to the new covers. If you want a more detailed explanation on what this is and how these steps work, I definitely recommend actually watching a tutorial instead of just watching me try to figure this out on my own. But during this process, you also do the end bands, which go at the top and bottom of each hardcover. Basically, if you open any hardcover book you have next to you, it's more than likely that you have end bands in it. And so during this step, I am cutting the mull cloth to be the same height as the book, but I don't mind if there is a little bit extra hanging off the edge. That will either get trimmed later if it's too much, or it will be kind of just hidden by the end paper and help with support and everything. So this is also the stage where you can add a bookmark if you want, and I thought originally that is what I wanted, and I don't think it would have hindered the book at all. Like, I think it would have made it look nice and everything, but we didn't have like the right material for it. A lot of people use ribbon, and so I grabbed 2 different ribbons that I thought would look nice with the book. However, they were just too thick and they were so obviously ribbon that they weren't smooth enough to really be a bookmark, especially when you think of like those thin ones that come built into books. My first thought are those Penguin classic bound books. They usually come with a bookmark. So that's what I was attempting to make and include in this, but unfortunately I just didn't have the right material, and I was in the process and I was going. I also want to take a moment to address the camera angle, which usually you don't see my lap, but that is my blanket. It gets cold. That's why I usually sound sick in my videos, because I'm sniffly and cold. But I needed to lean the book press against my desk so that I could hold it upright, because the space between my camera and my desk was not tall enough to account for the book press being on its side, and so that's what that is. And the book press just helps you hold the book, basically. It's not really doing anything book pressy in this stage. And then here are the end bands I was talking about. They come on these like long strips, and then you just cut them to the width of your book. So I went through and I pulled out a couple different colors. I had my swatch book off to the side so that I could see what my cover color was, and then I went through and picked one that I thought would match. And you can make your own bookends. Already forgotten the word. But you can make your own using book fabric and a piece of twine, rope, string is the right word. You can do that, but I didn't do that for this, and so if you are interested in that, you'll have to check out an actual tutorial. But I did end up finding a end band that was almost the exact same color as the bookcloth I picked out, which was kind of fun. And so I just used that, and then you'll need 2 for each book, so I needed another 12. And I just cut it to be, the width of the book. And you can see my ugly mouse back in the frame, and me kind of like trying to pay attention to something, and that's because I was watching a tutorial myself on how to do this. Mentioned again in that first part, and linked below if you are interested. So now that I have those end bands cut and sized correctly, I am just double checking the size right here, because if you have any like overlap or misaligned, I guess, end bands, it is kind of obvious. But end bands go first when you are finishing up your spine. I don't remember off the top of my head when the bookmark goes in, because it wasn't relevant to this book, but you'll glue your end bands down, and then you'll add the mull cloth over top to keep everything kind of steady. And then at the end, you can actually see me put a piece of cardstock. It's the same color as the end paper on the mull cloth, and that is just for additional support. And when you open the book, you can see that small gap between the chipboard and the actual spine, and so it just adds a bit of color and reuses scraps you already have. So this is the chipboard step, and if I'm being honest, this one was probably the hardest step, only because chipboard is so thick to cut through. And while that's really good for making a hardcover book, it's not great for trying to cut through, and so I had a heck of a time trying to cut through this stupid chipboard. I have an X-Acto knife, and that's what I used for honestly most of it. I think at one point I switched to a rotary cutter so that I could kind of like hopefully do it in one swipe, but yeah, that just didn't work. So I had to like score it multiple times with the X-Acto knife. And I also don't know how people get straight cuts, because like here I am utilizing the side of the chipboard where, you know, it was professionally cut, and you can already see how wonky my line is in comparison. And like I tried lining it up with the mat on the in the back to kind of protect my desk, and I just could never get a straight line. And that's one of the biggest flaws with these books, is that they're wonky, and honestly it doesn't really matter. Like, if I'm being honest, it's not super noticeable. I tried to use the nice side outward and then this wonky side inward, but that does make a weird spine, and so this is definitely the hardest part. And so when I finished cutting one, I just traced it onto the like other half of the chipboard and cut it from there. And that's how I made the front and back covers, and since all the covers were the same size, it was relatively easy. Relative as in working with chipboard. This made my hand hurt so badly. But most difficult part, and the part that I definitely messed up in mine, was the spines. Now, I don't remember the exact measurements. Again, this isn't really a tutorial. This is more just my experience. But when you make your spine, you add a little bit of extra width, I believe, just like ever so slightly. And somehow I messed that up so badly for a number of these books that when I came to assembling them, I just would pick a spine that fit best, which meant that the last two books that I ended up doing, that I just had the wrong spine length for. Realistically, I should have cut it down more. In like every case, they were just too big. Like I left too much width allowance, I guess. And so it's just, it was a learning curve. But also with that chipboard, because it's what like overhangs your book, like you make it a little bit longer than your text block. You can see the end papers on like some of them because I didn't cut the end paper correctly. Like I made the end paper too long. And so it's just all over the place. A Beale appearance. I had to be so careful when he was walking across my desk because, you know, X-Acto knife. So that's why I like am literally frozen while he's doing all this stuff. It's because I don't want to accidentally cut him or anything. But that's how my chipboard experience went, and it was an absolute pain in the butt to do this for all 6 books because it's 2 spines, or 2 covers, my bad, 2 covers per book, front and back, and then the spine. And so I was cutting a lot of chipboard. And with this chipboard, I got it off of Amazon, unfortunately. Each chipboard could do 1 book. So I used 6 pieces of chipboard to do all 6 books. So I would keep that in mind. So this is the part where the fabric finally comes in. And here I am unrolling the beautiful fig Verona cloth, also from Hollanders. Not sponsored, I just really love the color. And honestly, even just like texture and stuff, it was nice to work with. My only critique is that it is, for how big it looks, it is quite small. For each sheet, I was able to do 2 books. So I needed 3 sheets in total for all 6 books. So I would just keep that in mind if you are interested, because unless you know the exact measurements of what you're going to be using, when I looked at the online shop and looked at the sizes of everything, I was like, oh yeah, this will be plenty, and bought 1 sheet. So between this clip and some other clips, I had to wait for more to come in because obviously with 1 sheet I could finish 2 books, but 1 sheet wasn't going to finish all 6 for the end of the video, and so that's what happened, and I thought I'd mention it because obviously it's important. So here I am laying out the chipboard, since that'll tell me how much fabric I'll need. The exact spacing isn't relevant at this point since you'll use like these little measurement tools when you actually glue the chipboard down to the fabric, and so you'll see that in the next step. But this was just to give me a rough idea of how much I needed to use, and so I literally just set them down and then left about 1 inch on each side so that when I could fold it over when I glued everything together. There are exact measurements you can use to get like the most out of your fabric, but honestly 1 inch was about fine for me. It's what you can see me lining it up on the side with the ruler, and so that's what I did. I got 2 books out of each fabric, so yeah. I do want to add on that same with the chipboard, I did use the X-Acto knife, my scissors at some point, and a rotary blade to cut this fabric. While it's not super thick, I think my rotary blade was just bad, and ironically I just bought it too, but I ended up with a new one, same brand, same size, everything, and that one worked much better. So as you can see me trying to figure out how to use it, there is some struggle. And I think it was mostly user error. Honestly, I didn't find this as easy as I'd hoped it would be, because like when you were rolling it away from yourself, it would kind of veer and wouldn't stay flush against the ruler, and so that was annoying, and so I ended up mostly just using the X-Acto knife. My scissors were used every now and then, basically, because of like some threads that didn't get cut. Unfortunately, I did need like 2 passes with the X-Acto knife to cut through this, but my X-Acto knife blade hasn't been changed in a really long time, so that could also be user error. But I just thought I'd let you know in case you were wondering about the switch in tools that may appear in some clips. I would like to preface this segment with saying that this one book cover took me 25 minutes. My editing software went from 15 minutes to 40. Yeah, this took a while. But anyway, this is attaching the chipboard to the my cat. Oh, what a goober. I'm watching the footage back and I'm just like, oh, he's such a stinker, but I love him very much. But this is attaching the chipboard to the fabric, and as you can see, I have these little well, as you cannot see because there's a cat in the way, but I have these little measuring sticks that I put between each piece. Oh, just hit the mic. Sorry about that. But I put this between each piece of chipboard, and then I made sure that it was like straight. You can see him messing it up because he thinks it's a toy for him. Oh goodness. Yeah, see, he's batting it around. So then I grabbed a pencil to try and play with him because usually he's trying to take pencils out of my hand. But ignoring the cat, as hard as it possibly is to do such a thing with that sweet little face and those fuzzy little paws, I took the stick, and it says 8mm, so that's what I used for the spacing guide, and so I put 8mm between each piece of chipboard. From there, I straightened everything, top and bottom, again, distracted by my cat, and I outlined each piece with pencil, and I just realized that I will speed up the footage that I am watching in real time right now, so the cat segments are definitely not going to line up. But straightened each piece, traced it, and then I removed the chipboard from the bookcloth, and then I put down a bunch of glue in the lines that I had traced, and the person I was watching said she was an overgluer. Again, linked in the description for her tutorial. I found it super helpful. I underglued everything, because there are parts where the bookcloth is not actually attached to the chipboard, and it makes these kind of obvious little patches, particularly on the spine and then around the edges of the front and back covers. It's like those edges didn't get enough glue, and so that was my downfall, and I thought I improved it as I made each book, but honestly they all look like they were done at the exact same time. But that's what I did for this step, and honestly, it wasn't that hard. From there, I cut the sides, and the person I was following, she had 15mm. I did not have a piece that was 15mm, so I combined my 10 and 5 to get 15mm. I think if I were to do this again, I'd leave more space. I'd do maybe 20mm because sometimes I felt like I didn't have enough fabric to fold over the edges. So sometimes, while it is covered with the end paper at the end, if your end paper is a little short, then it's not super clean, because then you can see the chipboard if you can't see the cloth. But that was all for this step. It was a lot of trimming and just measuring, and the sticks I used were from Etsy, which if I remember I will link below, and if I forget, make sure to comment that I forgot, because these sticks are the only way I was able to do this. I wanted to get the acrylic ones, but unfortunately those were sold out, so I ended up with these wooden ones. And I found the guy on Reddit, so Reddit to Etsy shop. And here I am. I guess not here I am because again, not lifetime, but I tapped the book cloth at one point and showcased that the spine is a little short compared to the to the covers. And that was just me not measuring things properly, but at the same time, I don't know how you were supposed to get straight lines. So this was a struggle. The chipboard was a problem. You can see me swapping the spine with a different spine so that it's not too short. Ugh, the stupid chipboard gave me so many problems. And then before I leave, I wanted to mention these corner pieces. I didn't have an exact measurement, so I went with 2mm, and this was just so that there wasn't bulk in the corners of the book and they'd lay flat. So the final step, finally we've reached this point, the final step is to combine the book with the cover. And oh my goodness, it's all worth it. We finally made it. So I'm using more of that PVA glue. I don't know if I explained it, but you use PVA glue because it's more flexible than like other glues so that it won't kind of like chip off and whatnot. Because while you're reading, you don't want your spine to break or your text block to break. So I added a layer of that underneath the mull cloth to adhere it to the end paper, and then I went over it again so that the cover would have something to stick to. And you can see me using lined paper in the background. You should not use lined paper, you should use parchment paper, and I was told this, I was just lazy and didn't want to go get some. So what you should do is use do not use lined paper. What you should do is parchment paper behind the end paper to cover the rest of your book so that you don't get glue on anything. And then when you're ready to press your book, you swap the parchment paper with a new sheet so that there's no glue anywhere that would accidentally stick to anything. And then you do this process for both the front cover and the back cover, and then the spine does not get any glue. So here you can see me pulling away the lined paper. Hello, kitty. Would you like to sniff my mic? Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, he opened Teams again. Fun. If you watched... I guess that video hasn't come out yet, but I am done with editing it. On September 5th, I believe, the video about my cat will be coming out. And that's very exciting. I finally get to introduce him all to you guys. Yeah. So what you do is you slide your new piece of paper or parchment paper, as you should be using. You slide it between your end paper again so that nothing sticks, and then you just close it. You really shouldn't like flip it back open and make sure it's smooth. You should really just one and done it, is what I heard. I think on one I did look, but this is what you should do. And then the next part is just rinse and repeat. After leaving your book to press for 24 hours, it's finally time to reveal what you did. And for me, I could do 2 books at a time. And so you will be seeing the reveal of the last 2 books I had to complete. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what their names are, but it was the yellow one and the blue one. And so I wrapped them in some scrap paper I had to kind of protect them from the nails, or not the nails, the screws and the handles, because I didn't want them to get like dents in them. I don't know how much of a problem that would have caused, but I just didn't want to risk it. And if I remember correctly, I screwed all 4 screws down onto the books to press it. And then I also put some heavy books I had literally just sitting next to it on top as well, so that there was pressure coming from the middle and the sides. The kitty is back. Walking across my computer, yes. But here I am pulling off, he just knocked my razor off. Thanks, bud. Here I am pulling off the paper, and this is the reason you use parchment paper instead of lined paper, because this lined paper is stuck to the end cap. Or not the end cap, the end card. Marketing brain. It's still not the end card. Oh my god, YouTube brain. The end page. There we go. He's really just having the time of his life with my eraser. He's so distracted. But yeah, here I did do one with parchment paper. I was just too lazy to get another sheet to do both books. So that's what these are, and it came out much nicer. And here's what they look like as soon as I get this crap out of the way. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. All that hard work paid off. I can't tell you how long this exactly took me, but I'm pretty sure it took me about 8 hours at least. I think when I plugged all my footage in, it was 4 hours of footage. And I didn't record everything. A lot of times I record the process of 1 or 2 books, not all 6. And so this was a project that I did over, 3 or 4 days? And I was working at the same time, so it wasn't like 3 or 4 days of consistent work. But here's how the last 2 books of the series turned out. As you can see, there's kind of some messed up parts. Cat coming to inspect. The huge. And as we're moving into the final segment, the grand reveal of all 6 books, I did want to give an update on my upload schedule, as there will no longer be a bonus video coming out this Friday for like all 6 books showcase, as I have gotten a silhouette cutting machine and some heat transfer vinyl, and a small heat press, so that I can actually do gold foil on these covers. I've begun the process, but I'm not anywhere close to finishing it, so I don't know when that video will be out. But here's the updated schedule. Intro to Bookbinding will be out on the 11th. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this series. It was a lot of work, but honestly the effort is so rewarding. And in the showcase video, which I'll do after the gold foiling video, I'll have a little announcement to make about these books. So stay tuned for that if you're a fan of the series or just want to support me.